Our next session brings together leaders from e-commerce, brands, ad tech, and media companies to explore how marketing is evolving across every facet of the ecosystem. This session is moderated by Esther Raphael, Chief Marketing Officer, Intersection. So please join me in welcoming Esther and her panel to the stage.
These are comfy.
All right.
Hi, everyone. So excited to be here. We are going to have a conversation today that sits at the crossroads of constant change. As marketing continues to evolve, today's leaders face a critical challenge: how to move fast, embrace innovation, and still build the kind of human connections that endure. From e-commerce to out-of-home, from AI to emotional storytelling, today's panelists are navigating disruption on every front. We'll unpack what it takes to lead through change, balancing the speed of innovation with the staying power of real-world connection. And I will let my wonderful panelists introduce themselves.
Great. Hi, I'm Jeanniey Walden, and I am the founder of a company called Liftoff Enterprises, which is a TV show and a podcast and also a fractional CMO firm. I'm currently working with Rakuten Rewards.
I'm Laurel Rossi. Thank you for having me. I am the Chief Growth Officer at Infillion. We are an advertising network. I am particularly excited about being here today because we have a product called Interim, so excited to talk about that. And you probably know us best by our TrueX and our MediaMath products.
Hi, everyone. I'm Olivia Santarelli. I'm the head of marketing at Gemini. We are a regulated cryptocurrency exchange based in New York. You can buy, sell, store Bitcoin. You can also use a credit card so you can start to earn Bitcoin or crypto on everyday purchases.
Awesome, welcome. Let's start with you, Olivia. With all the change that's happening in marketing, how are you making sure your brand still feels human? What's something you're doing differently to create deeper, more meaningful connections in this high-speed environment?
Yeah, I think right now especially, having marketing that feels really human is so important. In crypto, it's very hard to feel human because you're working with a mobile app, and it's a very difficult to understand new type of technology with Bitcoin. And so really trying to humanize marketing is like the top priority. And we do that through we try to do that through really beautiful creative and storytelling. And that's so important to us to really focus on like the creative and creating artwork that really speaks to people and resonates. A lot of times I think crypto can feel like very robotic, and so we try to always like add a human touch to it. We launched a campaign a couple of months ago called Go Where Dollars Won't, and we worked with a designer who did a lot of the artwork for Dune, and he created 4 scenes of the future for us. And we wanted to really like put people into a positive frame of mind when they think about the future. And so these scenes were all really fun experiences on Earth, but then set to like an outer space setting. And so just tried to like make it feel like a story that you could place yourself in and think about the future 50 or 100 years out.
That's very cool. Jeanniey, same question.
Gosh, there's so many ways that from an out-of-home perspective, I've brought the experience into the brands that I work with, whether it's Rite Aid or Daily Pay, Rakuten. It's very exciting to be able to humanize the brand by putting your message where the people that you're trying to reach are. And at Rite Aid, we were big fans of out-of-home inside stadiums. Also wrapped cars. I mean, there's nothing more than taking on your competitor where they are on the street and on the ground by leveraging out of home to create that communication and that contact with them. And it's just been a way that I think, even as the world changes, going back to a billboard that I did with CK1 in 2002, creating a humanized connection to more recent things that we've done at Rite Aid, or even what Permane Brothers and Morgan are doing in Pittsburgh. It's one of the most impactful ways that I've seen. And I think as the world becomes more AI generated, that human connection is going to stay out. And the strategic use of out of home is just going to really push brands up to the top where they deserve to be.
We're definitely going to cover AI shortly in this conversation. Laurel, tell us a little bit about how you personally are navigating change as a leader. That's obviously something we all have to think about for our teams as we move faster.
Yeah, it's a really super interesting time. I mean, we have the luxury of working with about 1,400 brands. And so what I'm thinking about on a daily basis is as we lead our clients, but they're really leading us, right? They're all different. They're all teaching us a little bit about the convergence of technology and the human side of our business. We have a very human business. And I really focus on taking the friction out of the system. Don't be afraid of technology. There's probably an agent for that. I know we're going to talk more about AI later, but I think the fear factor is really there for people right now. And as a leader, I really try to focus on how to take the fear out of the convergence of technology and the human side of our business and not squash creativity, of course.
There's definitely a bit of fear around AI, but we will talk more about it. As marketing channels multiply and attention becomes harder to earn, brands are rethinking how and where they show up. So let's talk about how you cut through that noise while staying true to your brands. Olivia, with so many channels competing for attention, how do you think about where Gemini shows up?
Yeah, for us, brand is so important. The nature of crypto is that it is all digital first. And so that's obviously like very foundational to our brand. We have a lot of like paid marketing that we run, but I think for us, really positioning our brand out there and sort of making a statement in new ways is important. And there's still a huge brand awareness opportunity for us for crypto overall, but especially for Gemini. And so we think a lot about brand, and we're always trying to like do something, put a little bit of a different spin on it. So we started with the out-of-home campaign, and what we really want to do now is start to like build on that with in-person events, activations, IRL, meeting customers live, like no digital creative campaign sort of like does a better job than just seeing people face to face and like creating a space for that to happen. So conferences and the brand moments are so important to us, and always like doing something a little bit different. So in Austin, we had an event with the All In podcast. And then after it, we had a drone show as well to sort of create this experience for the brand and to introduce Gemini to a wider audience. So just trying to build brand moments on top of each other. So it's not just one thing at a time, it's a lot of things together.
IRL has come up a ton, and we are only halfway through our first day. I know Nick brought it up earlier in his keynote. We've talked a lot about it yesterday at our board meeting, but it's something that we've been talking a lot about at Intersection, because there is and a lot of messaging that we've been using over the past few weeks and even today, but there is a special power at out-of-home that other media platforms, to your point, do not have, that ability to be in real life with them on the street in their journey experiencing something. And when you think about Gemini and those activations, how do you use out-of-home to really make them feel something?
I think it goes back to the creative and the copy too. We were just talking about AI. It's a lot easier now to develop campaigns with AI, but you still really feel like it doesn't have that human touch to it. And so I think it really comes down to like trying to tell a story through the creative and through the different placements. So a lot of times we work on, just like very high impact placements where we can do all of the different creatives sort of showcased at once in different ways, and sort of plan that around like conferences and moments where people are experiencing our brand in real life at an event, and then also outside as well.
Awesome. Jeanniey, can you share with us, I know you work with a lot of brands, a recent example of a campaign or a decision that really moved the needle?
Yeah, well, I'm obsessed right now with the Primanti Brothers Morgan & Morgan billboard omni-channel activation. And I think throughout my career, I've found that omni-channel works so well with out-of-home. But for those of you that are not from Pittsburgh or do not know Primanti Brothers, let me tell you what they did. They hired Morgan & Morgan, those, we get money for you attorneys, to create a billboard holding up a chicken wing and say, are you disappointed with Primanti Brothers wings? Call 1-800-SAD-WINGS and we'll take care of it for you. It's something that stops because it's so relevant and it's so humanized. Then Primanti Brothers responded to this with shock on their social media channels, took out a full-page ad in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette on the back page to apologize to the people of Pittsburgh for their bad wings and introduce a new product line. Now, that is one of the most creative, well-thought-out examples that I have seen that I wasn't involved in at all, other than being the customer on the other side. I can tell you back from the, Rite Aid, for flu season, it is absolutely the #1 way for us to make connections with people in communities and let them know that it's time to get their flu shot. And so it really works so differently based on what your needs are, and so impactful. #1 driver, when you can get a 10x ROI on a billboard, something's working.
Yes, indeed. Laurel, tell us how you're seeing brands use data and advancing technology to work out of home into their existing strategies when maybe they haven't done so in the past.
Yeah, I think the emerging, space for all of us is to think about, how do we extend what's happening in a very impactful out-of-home unit. We're in a lot of stadiums, we're in a lot of arenas, but while you might have a captive audience, how do you extend that? And you have such a great opportunity because you have that audience for a long period of time. And so because we have an ad platform and we can understand that identification, we make a point of engaging with customers. And we've been in the engagement business for a long time in terms of really being able to capture and earn that attention in a value exchange. When we do that in a stadium or an arena or on a billboard, et cetera, and you create that engagement mechanism, you can then have that opted into experience with the customer where you can target them, retarget them, and use that data with a persistent ID. That is not yesterday's technology, and it's not even tomorrow's technology. It's here. This is what we do. And with that opportunity where you really got somebody's engagement and attention, and for Gen Z, this is it. It's engagement. You get my attention or you don't. I'm not necessarily brand loyal. I might be. I think we have to earn that attention, and I think out of home has been the perfect opportunity to be able to engage that customer. And even if it's fleeting, even if I'm just driving by it.
I want to stay with you and with that thought for a minute. I think about out of home as this ability to serve personalized messages in a different kind of way. Not like the creepy way that tracks me, but like personalization 2.0. When you're thinking about your brands and targeting and personalization, how are brands using out of home in ways that do feel personal and not placed?
One of the things that I am most excited about is in the Gen AI space is I can personalize that message pretty much instantaneously, right? I can compose that message, I can make it personal to you. But the one thing about today's customer is that it doesn't have to be polished. Actually being authentic is way more important than being polished, and therefore I think we sometimes overthink it in the traditional advertising way where that billboard might be gorgeous. However, at the end of the day, what follows on should be really authentic and personal. And I think that's been the secret sauce for us, with way better returns from that perspective.
That's a great point. Olivia, for Gemini, how big of a role does measurable impact play in your out-of-home decisions?
For us, it's maybe a little bit easier in some ways because we are a regulated company, so we have identity verification processes in our sign-up flow, so we can sort of see what state somebody's in when they sign up and tie it back to in New York we've been running out of home and there's a huge surge in New York sign-ups. So that's the bonus of one of the more regulated types of companies. And then we work with our partner Quan and Brian to figure out the brand sentiment and brand awareness aspect of all of our campaigns, and that's really important too because you have to, for a product like crypto, you don't just buy it, or you don't buy Bitcoin the first time you see an ad. It takes many, many touch points and a lot of education and a lot of reassurance and trust building that goes into it because it is people's money, and so the sentiment and the overall brand lift is important too.
All right, let's get to the AI portion. How are you all thinking about AI through the near-term lens and maybe medium-term, 12, 18 months? Do you want to go first?
Gosh, it's a big question to answer. I mean,
let's do short term.
Yeah, in the very short term, we're looking at AI for process efficiency, one-to-one creative design, and looking at ways to connect better with somebody based on their psychographics. interestingly. I'm a big fan right now of psychographics, especially with out of home, because you can really reach the audience that you're trying to get to.
I think for us, it's really about agentic AI right now. We're thinking about, how to automate workflows, how do we take what we're learning and have the agents make decisions for our customers. And we're stepping into this very lately, right? It's a test of 20%. It's not a test of 100% of any one thing. And I think that stepwise approach has been super smart for us. The other is clearly personalization and creative, as I mentioned earlier, has been the absolute game changer in terms of getting real return on investment in terms of engagement. And we've started to measure things that have been generated through some of the AI that we're working on by not just measuring pure response, but also deep engagement. How long is somebody persisting? We're using games. We're building games on top of games. And I think that's really where the category is going to go next. I think it's really about that deeper engagement and how long you can have someone persist with your business.
I use it a lot for, honestly, like project management. It sort of cuts down on a lot of that aspect, so then I can actually focus more with like the design and marketing teams to think through ideas and to brainstorm. And then we also use it sometimes for imagery, like YouTube thumbnails or something. We'll pull a clip from a YouTube video and have AI generate a thumbnail. So we do it in small ways like that. And yeah, it's definitely like good for a lot of the creative imagery, but it doesn't just stop there. You sort of need a design touch to it then too.
So when you think about all the technology and the advancements of AI, do you feel that IRL media, like out of home, can kind of counterbalance all this tech piece of it and offer like serendipity and emotion in a hyper-targeted world? So how do we still get back to like human attention and human connection when it is so technology driven?
I like to think of out of home as the opportunity to create imagination. If you create the right out of home elements and the creativity, each person sees that image differently. And it starts to let them imagine what it would be like to be engaged with your company, with your brand, with your effort, whether that's at an event, at a bus stop, with a wrap car, seeing a billboard. And that's really helpful because we still need that human connection. I call it air. If the creative is not authentic, inspirational, and relatable, if you don't have air in it, it's not going to work. And I think that's going to help to balance everything that's happening with AI.
Well, I think programmatic's changed everything also. I mean, for out of home, I think you've got digital out of home that is limitless in terms of the iterations, and I think that's how we really have to think about it. I think the IRL piece is fantastic, but really the digitized world is really where I think we're going to get the most return on investment.
I think it just makes the product even more important too. Like the marketing is so important. You have to be able to like tell a story and get people to feel inspired in a very crowded market. But I think then it comes down to having like the best product experience and people wanting to come back to the app and like feeling that sense of brand loyalty. And that comes from one-on-one emails like, hey, I noticed you signed up yesterday and you didn't complete the registration process. Do you have any feedback? Do you have any questions? So I think that is really the most important thing, is like having that human connection through touch points with customers, and like not forgetting that at the end of the day, it's like one person that's using your product after seeing an ad, and you want to always maintain that like one-to-one connection.
Laurel, how do you feel data analytics and consumer insights drive more personalized and meaningful interactions with consumers without compromising trust?
Yeah, I think the trust topic, I mean, there's a lot of talk about it this morning.
Yeah.
I think Nick touched on it a great deal. I think that trust is really a function of not just the don't go too far personally. I think it's also a function of, being authentic, respecting my privacy, of course, and all of those things. But I think trust is really, I know technology exists, and are you going to make it personal, right? I trust you to deliver something of value. It's not just trust in terms of, are you going to do something nefarious? And so I think over the long run, we're going to see that personalization, we're going to fail a lot with personalization, but ultimately the relevance factor will take over. And I think where we're really leaning heavily into data, particularly because we have the opportunity to use persistent IDs across many, many different channels because that's the business we're in. I mean, even within Stadium. I think there's an expectation that you're not going to do something negative, but that you actually are going to do something hyper-personalized. If I engage with you, if I do that value exchange with you, I have an expectation. And I think trust is built not just on the negative, but it's also built on positivity in terms of what you're going to do for me in terms of value exchange.
So a question for all three of you. As we look ahead, what's one thing you believe will matter more in the future of marketing, especially as tech and media keep shifting?
I mean, I would stick with the data and analytics because something that you said made me think about what we're doing at Rakuten. You know, a lot of companies use data and analytics to figure out what their customers are doing on their platform or in their company. What we're using it for is to figure out what happens when you're not interacting with a company. Maybe I know what your shopping habits are on Rakuten Rewards, but what do I not know about you? So when I can look at the data and find out that that my best customers also all own dogs instead of cats, or they all happen to live in Virginia, or they all love barbecue, that gives me the opportunity to leverage the data to create an experience that might be much more relevant with them. And I think that's what the future is going to be about, is understanding your customer to know how to get in the same world that they're in right now.
Two things. I'm going to steal this from Shelley Palmer. I saw his presentation last week. As marketers, we have to think about marketing to the actual technology. So not just marketing to the end user. I thought that was fascinating, and I think it makes perfect sense. I think that the ability to turn around an insight is probably the key to our future as marketers in this business. And so when I think about it, you know, whether I have a dashboard or we are turning around that data this quickly to impact a campaign, to impact, you know, a brand negative, a brand positive, whatever that is, and getting more facile with that, I think will drive the future in terms of what we all need to learn. And it's not easy, right? Because it used to be a very long process in terms of being able to derive that insight and be able to turn that around. I think there is not only an expectation among agencies and brands to do that, but I think we have that expectation of ourselves now, right? Yeah. Immediacy.
Yeah, the quick turnaround is definitely important, especially today. But I am going to sound like a broken record when I say like creative and storytelling, because I just think that like everything gets so crowded. To be able to like condense a really complex technological innovation into one sentence on a billboard that people grasp and actually want to sign up for or learn more about is actually, it's really difficult and really fun too. So I think that that's still going to be like the most important thing over the next year or so that we focus on. It's how to bring people in really easily.
We are out of time, but we are not going to wrap without the question that every panelist has been asked. If there's one thing you want people to take away with or remember from this session, what would it be? Really quickly, each of you, please.
AIR, make your campaigns authentic, inspirational, and relatable.
There is not friction between human and technology, that is actually the future. And if you put that into your mindset, you will act accordingly.
There's a huge opportunity for really beautiful creative in out of home and all of marketing.
Beautiful. Thank you, ladies.